What's going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at. Whenever you're watching this, we're going to be jumping into a Warhammer fantasy video. I guess we're going to be checking out a beginner's guide to the Age of Sigmar. The video requested by one of my YouTube members for me to check out here. This is an extremely chaotic beginner's guide to Age of Sigmar by Thronduin's Tales. I believe that's the name of the channel. So links will be down below as always to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to Thuridin's. I think that's actually how it is. Thuridin's Tales. So yeah, links will be down below to his channel and to the original video. So please do me a favor, if you enjoy this as we go through it, be sure to go over and give the original video of his a like, and check out his channel. If you enjoy his content, hit that sub button, show him some love. If you'd like to join us when I do these reactions live with my YouTube members, there's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. So yeah, if you want to take your sport to the next level, check all that stuff out. If you enjoy my commentary and reaction as we go through this video, consider leaving a like and a sub. It helps me and the channel grow, and lets the YouTube algorithm gods know that you want to see some more. So with that said, jump into it here.
Greetings! My name is Thuridin and I love Warhammer. I love the world, I love the miniatures, I love the game, and I especially love Age of Sigmar. And seeing as how I'm always trying to...
Kind of interesting, because maybe it's a situation where like it's had time to mature, but most of what I hear, people have been upset about Age of Sigmar.
Convert more people to the Holy Church of G-Dubs, and B, Warhammer is a bit tricky to get into at the best of times. I thought I'd do what I do best and share with all you beautiful people the gift of knowledge and make a little beginner's guide to the world of Age of Sigmar. However, first a caveat. Seeing as how this is very much meant as a beginner's guide, I'm not going to cover absolutely everything. Especially as you get into recent lore, there are an absolute assload of characters and factions, and I'm at least trying to keep it as light as possible. So I won't get too much into the old fantasy setting. I won't go over every single battle or recent event. This will just be to put down the groundwork, if you will. Got that? Alright, neato. Happy to hear it. You can have a jelly bean, and let's get right into it. So once upon a time, somewhere, there was emptiness. The void between realms and stars.
As it always begins.
It was in this space that Dracovion, giant dragon made of stars and god beast de jour, was just having his afternoon nap when he suddenly got absolutely blasted by this giant light in the sky. This understandably caught his attention, and he immediately flew over to investigate the light, only to discover that it was actually a comet. A twin-tailed comet, in fact. But not just any twin-tailed comet, but one with a guy on it. Unsurprisingly, riding a giant blazing comet isn't exactly conducive to one's health. So Dracovion used his magic dragon powers to revive the guy from the brink of death, who told him that he was none other than Sigmar Heldenhammer, and that he is, or rather was, once upon a time a god. So, incredibly long story short, Sigmar had once been one of many gods of the so-called world that was, or Old World, which was your typical fantasy land of dwarves, elves, orcs, and humans. Now, things had been pretty neato down there for a while, until one day they caught the attention of the Chaos Gods, a pantheon of 4 demonic deities consisting of Khorne, god of murder, war, bloodshed, and being really angry all the time. Slanesh, god of excess and unspeakable desires. Nurgle, god of death, disease, pestilence, and life.
I like how he had a picture of Henry Cavill as Geralt in there.
And Tzeentch, god of change, magic, and being a tricksy little shithead, who all collectively decided to ruin everyone's day and kick down the metaphorical sandcastle. And with sandcastle, I mean blowing up the earth. So after letting Sigmar trauma dump for a while, Dracovion was just a bit like, damn, that sucks, buddy, and offered to bring Sigmar to this place called Azir, where he promised things were a little bit more chill. Sigmar, with not much better to do, was just kind of like, aight, and from that day onwards, the two became the best of friends.
You're just gonna sit and ride the comet around forever, I guess, If a dragon invites you to go to some, heavenly place, you kind of go there.
Now, Azir is one of the 8 mortal realms, which are the main setting of AOS, with each realm being a sort of separate plane of reality, which are each associated with a different flavor of magic.
That is kind of interesting, right? From what I know of you know, Warhammer, which most of the lore that I know of Warhammer is from the Total War games, a little bit beyond that, but you know, Vermintide and stuff like that. Like there weren't different realms like this other than the realms of chaos, to my knowledge. So that's interesting that there's more realms to explore and do.
You have Akshi, the realm of fire, Hayish, the realm of light, Ulgu, the realm of shadow,
It's very
Kyron, the realm of
Dungeons and
life,
Dragons.
Kamon, the realm of metal, Shayish, the realm of death, Gur, the realm of beasts, and the aforementioned Azir, the realm of heavens. However, while these realms might sound pretty straightforward on paper, they are a bit more creative and bizarre than you might think. When you hear about the realm of fire, you might imagine that it's all just a massive lava sea with fire everywhere. And while not completely inaccurate, you have to think a bit bigger than that. For example, you might have forests where the leaves are made of solid flame and the grass is steaming. Or you might have a perfectly normal piece of land where nothing is out of the ordinary except the terrain is just a bit hot. Similarly, the realm of metal is not just a giant cube of steel, but might have plains where the grass is made of gold and the sky shimmers with 1,000 silver stars. Anything is possible in the realms, with the only limit being your own crazy imagination. But back to Sigmar. With plenty of time on his hands, he decided to do a bit of sightseeing. You know, travel the realms,
I always felt like Sigmar was kind of basically, you know, the old world or Warhammer's version of just the Emperor, right? But doesn't seem to be the case. He doesn't seem to have as great an impact on the Warhammer lore, but maybe I'm mistaken and I just haven't gotten too deep into it.
Try out local cuisine, absolutely bash in the skull of anything that looked at him even remotely nasty, the usual. And much to his surprise, he actually ran into some familiar faces. As it turns out, he wasn't the only god who had survived the destruction of the old world, and he met up with folks like Alariel, goddess of life, and trees. Don't you dare touch the trees. Grungni, dwarven god of being the dwarfiest dwarf that ever dwarfed. Tyrion and Teclis, twin gods of supremely silly hats. Gorka Morka, or god of having a right proper fight. Nagash, god of death and supreme prick. And several more that aren't that important and no one likes. Trust me. Now, familiar obviously isn't the same as friendly per se. In fact, Sigmar had come to blows with several of these gods in the past, especially that creep Nagash. But they kinda stayed their hand since, for all of its majestic weirdness, the mortal realms were actually still pretty empty of people. You had the occasional tribal outpost or dwarven fort, but that was kinda it. So while some of the gods probably really wanted to start throwing out Yakuza heat actions, they also saw that doing so wouldn't get much work done.
Wouldn't really
it was
do
better
much
to
for
play
them.
nice, even if just for a bit. And like this, the alliance known as the Pantheon of Order was born, with elves, dwarves, yumis, and even some orcs and spooky.
So an alliance of gods from different races, I guess, came together and started creating life. Huh.
Undead skeletons working side by side to create majestic civilizations and cities. And for a time, life was good. You had city-sized workshops filled with craftsmen creating the best tools and gear imaginable. You had magic towers that rose up into the skies where wizards researched the arcane secrets of the realms. You had majestic palaces where nobles and artists gathered to discuss the fine arts, and bustling taverns where people of all walks of life gathered, sung karaoke together and got absolutely sloshed. It was all a really cool and fun time.
And chaos happened.
So those chaos gods I mentioned earlier that caused the destruction of the old world, oh, they were very much still around. And like the absolute hooligans they are, they were very excited to come crash the party once again. Now, the chaos gods have their own little realm of chaos, but as they didn't have an actual foothold in the
So it's interesting too, right? Like, I know they're in the 40k setting. You know, the chaos gods are the same gods as they are in the regular Warhammer setting, and there are other gods like, you know, the Eldari have their gods Cain, which I think is still the same Cain that's the elf god in Warhammer, etc. But yeah, there's other gods. So it's interesting. I mean, it just makes me wonder, like, power scale wise, like in the 40k, or not the 40k, in the regular Total War universe, right? Like, is it just because the Chaos Gods have been around for like since existence began, and they're basically kind of like forces of nature, that they're that much more powerful than these other gods? Would these other gods somehow be able to get as powerful as the Chaos Gods? Have they tried that? Do they even want to try that? Is it not possible? You know, like, it just brings up questions to me about if obviously these gods know the Chaos Gods exist, and they more than likely are going to interfere, like, with what they're doing with creating the creation of these civilizations. They do any kind of they take any kind of measures to try to prevent that, mitigate it as much as possible, prepare their creation to deal with chaos. They just say fuck it and do whatever. um do they, as gods, like I said, have any want to become more powerful to combat the Chaos Gods, remove them, dethrone them? Do they have some kind of understanding that doing so might make some kind of crazy fundamental changes to the fabric of the universe or something? You know, I don't know. It just brings up questions about the relationship of, I guess, these lesser gods versus the Chaos Gods, and what kind of plans these, you know, lesser gods would have to deal with the Chaos Gods, you know, etc.
Mortal realms, they were kinda stuck there and couldn't do anything too crazy. But they are a manipulative bunch of bastards if nothing else, and over time slowly wormed their way into the hearts of the realm's inhabitants. For example, even though the Pantheon of Order had secured much of the realms, they were still pretty dangerous at the best of times. You still had a need for soldiers and warriors whose martial prowess and acts on the battlefield attracted the attention of Khorne, who in turn pushed them ever onto greater acts of bloodlust and murder. While those who looked a bit too deeply into the arcane secrets might come face to ever-changing void of a face.
Pondering too deeply upon their orbs will lead you to Zinch.
With
ponder back.
Who was very happy to share his forbidden stash of knowledge with anyone who asked and was willing to pay the price. So over the centuries they kept whispering and whispering, offering people power, glory, riches, free Genshin pools, Alariel feed pigs, and whatever else their heart desired. And the corruption kept building and building until reality itself literally couldn't handle it anymore, and with a snap the veil broke and cities and civilizations that had been at the peak of their power crumbled all across the realms, swallowed whole by demons or the corrupted followers of chaos, and led by none other than Archaon, the ever-chosen, Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse, destroyer of the world that was, and overall a pretty cool dude. And the Pantheon of Order? Well, they were kinda caught with their pants down, as their alliance had started crumbling a bit. Tyrion, Teclis, and some of the other elven gods had actually already left by this point to give Slaanesh a good beating, since they ate a lot of elven souls when the old world was destroyed, and they'd very much like those back, thank you very much. While Gorka Morka and the orcs had gotten sick of following orders and just wanted to crump any git they wanted. And with the literal actual demons of hell banging on the door, most of the other gods had slightly more important things to work on than return Sigmar's calls. And all of this caused things to get out of control very quickly. Now, Sigmar and his mates, despite kind of falling apart, did still put up a very good fight. Sigmar is kind of a baller, so whenever he participated in a battle, he usually came out on top. Problem being that it wasn't just a battle. It was hundreds of battles happening simultaneously across different planes of reality. Sigmar might completely crush some poor greater demon he faced, but it didn't achieve much in the grand scheme of things when 10 others were causing a stir, as it were, the next realm over. But he obviously couldn't not fight either, so he kept going, even as he lost his favorite hammer when he threw it at Archaon and he missed, and it got sucked into a portal.
Wow, dude.
His cannon. Or as Nagant.
Wow, dude. You threw your hammer, missed, and then it got sucked into oblivion. Way to go, brother. Good job.
Ash finally gave him the skeletal finger, he still kept going. And that's when we get to the Battle of the All Points. So, across the realms, you might run into these things called realm gates, which are kind of like a magical subway system that allow you to travel from one part of the realm to the other, or even across realms entirely. This makes them a pretty big deal, and this makes a place like the All Points, which has 8...
Like, the Age of Sigmar is like completely different as far as lore creation wise than what I know of from the other total, or I guess the old world. Not even the old world, right? 'Cause now they have what, the old world, and then they have like the era that I guess the Age of Ruin, is that what it's called? Essentially leading up to the downfall, and then I guess Age of Sigmar is what's happening now as far as that goes. But yeah, the lore that I know from before was the Great Old Ones creating everything, kind of how it was in 40k situation. And then chaos ended up coming into the realm and messing with everything, etc., etc. So it's interesting seeing how they've kind of, I guess, in this Age of Sigmar, changed and expanded things. Again, adding these new gods, these new realms that sound and feel kind of very D&D-ish, while still keeping the Chaos Gods and those factions into the lore and, etc. It's also interesting that the elves are still going after Slaanesh because Slaanesh still devoured a bunch of elf souls.
Massive realm gates that each travel to one of the realms, a humongous deal. And exactly the kind of place that Archaon had set his beautiful, majestic, glowing eyes on. But we're right, yes. The Battle of the All Points. The true test of strength for the forces of order. They gathered their best warriors, sharpened their finest blades, wore their nicest shoes, and were completely stomped to bits. They just got completely rinsed. Which kinda killed Papa S's mood. So he took his ball, went home to Azir, and locked the doors behind him while Archaon and his mates continued partying in the mortal realms. And party they did for a very, very long time. And for a time, Sigmar just kinda walked around the house with his bathrobe and slippers on, not really knowing what to do. Chaos hadn't won yet, and there were still plenty of people holding out here and there, but it wasn't looking good. But then, one day, an idea struck him. He was pretty cracked, and he could easily slap demons. But he could only be at one place at once. So what if he technically managed to be at many places at once? During the centuries where Archaon and his mates were hanging out, Siggy would occasionally sneak a peek at the realms. And whenever he spotted some grand heroic figure still fighting chaos, he'd snatch them up just before they got murked. Then he'd put them in a tank's worth of armor, hand them a big bastion stick, infuse them with some of his special thunder juice, and bada bim bada boom, you have yourself a Stormcast Eternal. And once Sigmar had...
So these are like the Astartes of Sigmar. That's kind of what I'm getting from them. They've kind of in a roundabout way have made Astartes now in the regular Total War game, not the 40k setting.
Had amassed enough dudes, he took them by the hand, gave them a pat on the head, and hurled them all across the mortal realms on giant bolts of lightning. Giant beefcakes in metal armor suddenly just appearing out of thin air caught the forces of chaos a bit off guard, to put it lightly. And all across the realms, the Stormcast ripped and tore through demon and corrupted mortal alike. Countless realm gates were secured, cities and strongholds were recovered, and alliances were reforged. This was the start of Sigmar's grand counterattack, the Age of Sigmar.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, obviously, this wasn't a complete victory either. I mean, there wouldn't really be much of a game if all hostile forces were defeated, and it was instead called the Age of Friendship and Cuddles. Because, well, yes, this was a pretty harsh blow to Archaon and his gang, a pretty hefty chunk of the mortal realms were still under their control. And once they recovered from being jumped by armored goons as if it were a fantasy fair mugging, they did manage to mount some proper defenses here and there. And that's not even getting into the hordes of orcs or undead, courtesy of that prick Nagash, which were are also obviously a bit of a problem to deal with, but this is where I'm going to end things for today, because it is here where you can join in, where you can pick your factions and armies and fight for the fate of the mortal realms.
Gotcha.
Will you join Sigmar and the forces of Order in retaking the realms, or will you join Chaos and party with Archaon and his broskies on the weekends? Will you seek to raise grand kingdoms of the dead in the name of Nagash, or will you seek to tear it all down in the name of Dawa on the side of the orcs? The choice is yours. And if you like this chaotic little passion project of mine and want to see more, then make sure to like, subscribe, fully design, print and paint a custom miniature of myself and pray to it twice a day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.
Alright. There we have it. There we have it. That was an extremely chaotic beginner guide to Age of Sigmar by Third Inch Tales. Links down below in the description, as always, to the original video without my commentary interaction and to Third Inch channel. So please do me a favor, if you enjoyed this video of his, be sure to go over there and give it a like. Check out his channel, check out all the kind of content he's got over there, and show the man some love. Hit that sub button. From what I've got of this video, again, like I said, it's compared to what I know of the Total War lore. It's interesting seeing how much it's been seemingly expanded upon, again, with the different types of realms, and I guess all the different kinds of lesser gods, elven gods, you know, Sigmar, Nagash, etc., Gork and Mork, and how that there actually was an alliance of them, and they were working on recreating civilizations throughout the various realms. Chaos got involved, basically were wiping out everything, and it seems like Sigmar basically kind of created his own version of Astartes, so to speak, and threw them back out there for his counteroffensive. So I mean, it's interesting. Definitely want to learn more about the Age of Sigmar, and I mean, just in general, both the 40k and the Old World and Age of Sigmar tabletop games I would like to learn more about, to see, like, I'm already very interested in playing the 40k tabletop. I still have my set of Grey Knights that I need to actually put together and paint. So I'm already very interested in trying to get into the 40k tabletop stuff, but I'd be interested to see and learn what the rule set is for Age of Sigmar. I know the rules for the Old World are pretty detailed, I might say convoluted, but from what I've seen, it's just very it's much more tactical based, and there's a lot of rules to allow you to do a lot of things, so it's just a lot that you need to learn. But yeah, great video going over kind of the basic lore start for Age of Sigmar, so I'm kind of interested to see where this goes from there. And like I said, I'm interested to I guess if there is any more knowledge about kind of what the relationship is of these lesser gods like Sigmar versus the Chaos gods. Is this Star of Dragons, like, what would it be capable of against the Chaos gods? Is it something greater than the Chaos gods, equal to, lesser than, something just completely different by nature, you know? Like, I don't know. I'm always just interested to, like, when they talk about gods, you know, when it comes to the Total War and the 40k setting, like what kind of relationship they would have versus the Chaos gods. Obviously the Chaos gods themselves, the four of them, are basically kind of like the pinnacle of power for their respective nature, I guess you could say, you know? Lust, rage, pestilence, and knowledge, you know, stuff like that. Anyway, so But yeah, links will be down below, as always, to the original video without my commentary interaction. If you'd like to join us when I'm doing these reactions live with my YouTube members, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. Yeah, if you want to take your sport to the next level, check all that stuff out. And thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this video with my commentary and reaction, do consider giving it a like and subs. It helps me and the channel grow, and lets the YouTube algorithm gods know that you want to see more content like this. So thank you guys very much for taking time out of your busy day. If you're still watching here to the very end, it means a lot. And we'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.